All right, we're live. I've got Mark Condon here with me from iPuppy. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we had a really interesting pre-chat just now about your varied background, and so I want to get all into that. But first, tell us about what the product is that you've built and what the inspiration was behind it.
Sure. Yeah. So the product is named iPuppy. It's a dog training product. And where it came from is I had a chocolate lab named Champ for 14 years. I'm in finance by day full time. That's typically what I do. And I'm fully remote. My boy Champ was always hanging out on the couch behind me in the background of all my Zoom meetings. Like he was a staple. He'd be sleeping and his legs would start kicking as he's like chasing a rabbit. Like clients just got a kick out of it. So he was always a staple in the back of all my meetings. He ended up, as he got old, his back legs became really weak. And long story short, it just didn't make sense for him to come down into the office with me in the basement anymore. So I carried him up and down for a while, but it didn't make sense anymore. So he was on another floor of the house. And it just killed me because I didn't know when he needed to go outside and whatnot. So I wanted to create a product that could do two things. One, I could keep an eye on him, and there's plenty of cameras out there, lots of good ones. But what I was shocked is there wasn't a device out there where, say, a dog presses a button and you get a notification sent to your phone. I was shocked. So we did some research. We looked into even like pending patents to see if anything had been applied. Nothing. So we decided to create the product. So essentially, what iPuppy is, it's a dog training product. The dog presses the button. It's connected to your Wi-Fi. When the dog presses the button, you get a push notification sent to your phone. You open it up like you would any text message. And then actually, I have a unit here. So this is the iPuppy itself. And this is a camera at the front of the unit. So when you open up the notification, it takes you right to the camera. So you are literally getting a video call from your dog. Theoretically, if your dog just pressed it, they're right in front of the unit. You're getting a video call from your dog. You open it up, it takes you to to widescreen camera. There's a two-way speaker, so you can listen in through the iPuppy app, or you can talk into the iPuppy app, and it comes out the speaker on the side of the unit. But that's iPuppy in a nutshell. It was initially created as a potty training device, and I'm sure we'll get into this at some point. But it's quickly becoming like a medical life alert button for people in the service dog space.
Yeah, I think that pivot that you did when you realized what the market needed and you saw the need for that, we're definitely going to get into that some more. But first, a little bit about your background, because one of the things that I like to do on this podcast is show how diverse all these different hardware founders are. Some have technical backgrounds, some are non-technical. So kind of what was your original background and like what made you take the leap into hardware? Like the idea is one thing, but the second thing is actually saying I want to build a business out of it. So talk a little about your background and why you made that leap.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've always kind of been an entrepreneur at at the core of me. Like I've had my own business since I was 21. I'll be 41 next month. So like, it's just I don't know. It's just kind of always how I've always been. But I'm in finance by day, so I'm a full time financial planner, investments, insurance policies, cash flow, all that not exciting stuff to most people. But that's what I do, if you will, from like the typical 9 to 5. And so, and how I decided to make the leap into iPuppy is I don't know if you have a dog, like Champ was my boy. Like I had him for 14 years and like it just killed me that I couldn't always be with him. So I used to also host a podcast and I had a company on here that helps you bring physical product to retail. At the time, the whole idea had started coming together. So like, it was just kind of like a perfect blend of things that came together at the same time. And they're in-house engineers. They help you design and sketch and branding and marketing and help you just kind of create the components of whatever product you're trying to build. So that's why I took the leap. I just really wanted to. I've always wanted to bring a product to retail. I always thought it was a cool idea. Shark Tank, like I don't know, everybody's probably seen a gazillion episodes of Shark Tank. I love the idea of that, and I've always wanted to do that, but it's something I've never done. And then you tie it in with just kind of what was happening with my boy Champ at that time. Everything really just kind of coincided together. And I just said, screw it, like let's do it. So like my motto really ever since COVID was if it excites you and scares you at the same time, you should go for it. And that's exactly how I felt about iPuppy. Like I was so excited about it, but I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. No hardware background. I was really leaning on the engineers that I was working with and the app developers to help create it. And so I was super excited, but it scared me because I really didn't know too much about it. And then you fast forward, I have a dog training product. I don't have a dog. I have no dog training experience. And now we've pivoted to the service dog space and I have even less service dog experience. And now I'm like, I found myself in this space. I don't know how I ended up here, but I think that's just all kind of the process of just starting your own business. It just, I don't know. I don't know. That's just kind of how we ended up here for my
Yeah,
background, I guess. Yeah.
it just sounds like a whirlwind of perfectly timed events that all
Yeah,
came together.
exactly.
Did you have any kind of hesitation? So, this episode is probably going to resonate with other non-technical founders who have a similar story. So, did you have any sort of those like hesitation moments where you were like, "I'm not technical. How am I going to do this?" And if so, like, how did you kind of navigate those moments?
Yeah, I had a few moments like that. Because I'm not technical. Like I don't know any of that stuff. I'm really good on the finance side of things, which I think helped me figure out how I was gonna at least fund this and finance it. There's some creative strategies that I did to kind of help me get to that point because it's a tech product and it has an app. It's not cheap by any means. And then after you get to that point, you got to buy a bunch of inventory. And so I leaned on the finance piece to help me. I think that really helped me because I was entrusting the team of engineers that I was working with, and there's a few of them that I really like. They're genuine good people. They really knew what they were doing. They broke it down to me like I was a kid, to help me understand as much as I could. And I think not having I was definitely scared, but because I had a team of people that I could trust, it helped me just kind of make that leap to continue to go for it. And then the initial piece, I think, like those engineers, like they're a third party, so I hired them to help me, right? Essentially, that's what I did. But that first one, I hesitated a lot initially hiring them because it wasn't $20. It was it's a decent amount of change. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, I hired them, and now like, okay, now we have the app development, now we have the tooling, and like as you continue to go along the process, it just kind of makes it a little bit easier. The first leap was tough because you're really just trusting this team that you don't really know too much about. You have a good feeling with them, and they've shown you what they can do, but you're really just entrusting your gut in that point, and then it just kind of got easier from there as we kind of went along the process.
Yeah. One last note with like when you're hiring someone extra for help. So I was telling you a little bit about my full-time job. And what we do is kind of have like these smaller discovery phases where we like, okay, we want to make sure you understand how to work with us, how we can work with you. So that's kind of like a smaller kind of hill to climb, something to get more comfortable before you commit to something larger. So was that something that like you did or
Yeah, and I also had the benefit. Yes, we met probably 3 or 4 times before I pulled the trigger and eventually hired them. It was also I lucked out that they just happened to be 2 miles down the street from my house. A company I had never heard of like a month prior. They do exactly what I was looking for, and they happen to be a mile down the road. So I was able to not only see them over like Zoom and all that stuff is great, but the in-person vibe you get, seeing what other products they're creating within their workspace also helped that entire process. So we probably met 3 or 4 times before I eventually pulled the trigger. But I think the in-person thing really helped.
that's just sounds so serendipitous that they just happen to be down the street?
Yeah, man, it's wild.
On the same note of serendipity, well, I don't know if it's related or not, but let's talk about this pivot that we've kind of been hinting at for the last couple minutes. So, you had initially kind of brought this to market as a training device to help any dog inform their owner, hey, I have to go outside, kind of like those doorbells that they have. They sell, what are they called? Poop bells or something?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, potty bells, doorbells.
Potty bells.
Yeah, those annoying. You can call them poop bells. I think they're poop. So
So that's kind of your initial idea, but I think you did what is a very commendable trait for any founder, which is kind of keeping your ears to the market, paying attention to the feedback. And what you happened to discover was this whole world of service dog training. So talk a little bit about like what was that moment of realization? How did it feel to make that pivot?
yeah, it was scary. Because I just it's a space I know nothing about. But essentially, another component of the iPuppy is you can set it up so multiple people receive the notification. So the initial thought behind that feature was neighbors or dog walkers. Like if you're not home, but you have, say you live in an apartment complex and there's this one person that always takes your dog out, like wouldn't it be cool if they just received the notification so they can just come by? So that was the initial thought behind it. And then I was at a pet expo called Super Pet in New Jersey last March. I signed up for it 6 months in advance because I thought I was going to have inventory. I showed up there with zero inventory, but I
Oh
decided
no.
to make a weekend of it. It's within driving distance from me in Boston. It's like 4 hours. So I just said, screw it. Like, let me just, at the very least, I'm going to meet a bunch of people, consumers and pet business owners and such. So I went there And like, it was enjoyable. We didn't sell anything because we had nothing to sell. But one woman, Super Pet had made a few Facebook posts, and one woman reached out to me after the show saying, "Hey, I saw a Facebook post. Can I train my dog to press the button for an emergency?" I was like, I mean, you can train the dog to press the button for whatever you want. Like, you want a beer, you train your dog to go to the fridge and grab you a beer. You can do it for whatever you want. She's like, "Well, my mom just had her leg amputated and she's in a wheelchair, and I have a service dog. So if my mom falls, I want to train the dog for that cue." And I was like, and it was just like, from there, it was like mind blown. I was like, oh, wow. Like, not only is that something I had never thought of, but that is a very impactful and possibly, depending on the situation, a life-saving component that we just stumbled upon with iPuppy. So, and then as things got on, as more people I talked to in the pet space, everyone just made it clear that that's the space you got to go down. It took me up until, honestly, like a month ago to really change a lot of the language and the visual assets on the website to be more service dog focused. Like, the first half of the page is now all service dog focused, and then it just kind of gets into, trading the button and other features and such. But, for a couple of reasons, for a typical average pet parent, it's on them to train the dog to press the button, right? So, like, the barrier of entry is higher because the average pet parent might just run out of patience and say, "My dog's not picking this up," but it ain't the dog's fault. Like, it's the individual's fault. We provide a training guide, we provide a training video. There's multiple Instagram and social media posts showing you how to do it. But at the end of the day, it's up to you as the person to do it, right? It's a barrier of entry right there. It's always been a hurdle. But with the service dog space, one, many of these dogs know hundreds of cues already. Hitting a bell is super easy. And there's motivation behind the handler to make sure that the cue and the dog pressing the button are lined up, because it could save their life. So it's just a much lower barrier of entry. It's possibly life saving. It's just, it's such an obvious path. So, like, that's where we're really going to niche down and focus now. Really want to, just, for lack of better words, like, own and be the go-to product in that space. And then, yeah, it can be used for any application, really. Any desire you have that you want your dog to press the iPuppy for, you can. But I think the smart thing is to really niche down on that, kind of be the go-to product in that space, and then expand from there. The market's there. There's other buttons out there, but I think we're going to try to separate ourselves by focus on that service dog space, because now you can have multiple people receive the notification and be your emergency contact. So if something happened in the room with the iPuppy, they can see you and talk to you, or try to talk to you. If you're not responsive, they can either fly home if they're close by, or maybe they can call local authorities to come by and check in on you. Because there's a woman in the town next to me who's prone to seizures, and her dog was trained to act a certain way. The dog was trained to spin in circles, but she's like, if I'm home alone with my dog, that's irrelevant what the dog's doing. So now she has an iPuppy, and her dog's trained to press it when she has a seizure, and it goes straight to her husband. So it's just, man, like, it took a long time to really, like, sell myself on it, but now, like, it just makes so much more sense to go down.
Yeah. I love that you're having such a big impact on people, and people that are like in your vicinity, in your neighborhood, town over, things like that. I think
Yeah.
if we kind of zoom out from this pivot that you made, we can frame it in like the product development world, or phrasing, as something that went from being a nice to have to now it's like an absolute need, potentially life saving. Another framework is like vitamins versus painkillers. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like previously, when you were going to mass market, it was kind of just like, hey, if you want to like train your puppy for this kind of fun thing, which it is fun,
Totally.
you can do so. But now there's like a motivating factor behind it that could save lives, warn your loved ones, whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
super cool that you kind of found that and leaned into it. Was that pivot hard to do? I mean, you mentioned having to change your website assets and stuff, but from an overall approach standpoint, because assume you're now no longer doing direct to consumer, but more going after service dog organizations, things like that. So was
Yeah.
that pivot like difficult after you kind of had put all this effort into one path?
Yes. For a few reasons. I mean, one, I have no, like I said earlier, I have no experience as a dog trainer. Never mind the service dog space. And, like, in the dog training world, how people do things, like, they are very particular with how they do things, and they're very hesitant to incorporate anything else, right? And then you get into the service dog space with people who have allergic reactions and prone to seizures, and they have POTS, and it's just like, um, you got to be very careful. Like, I'm treading lightly in this space because I know nothing about it. I have zero experience, but the response has been amazing. And at the end of the day, it's only me. The emails, the website, the social media, everything's me. I'm doing iPuppy stuff between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. before my two little kids wake up in the morning to go to school. And then
Wow.
it's finance until 5, and then I pick them up at daycare. So really trying to segment out my days to focus. It was more of like a mental hurdle to just kind of take the time to change over the website and such. But the comment you made about direct to consumer and businesses and service dog organizations, I'm going to an event in Orlando the first week of March called the Assistance Dog International. It's all service dog companies, and three organizations actually have an iPuppy now, and one of them, they'll all be there, and one of them just got back to me saying it's the best product she's seen for service dog training in a very long time. She's really excited about it. It's like that was like I just got that email like 2 days ago. That was a cool email to see, and she's going to be at that event too. So I'm excited to follow up with her on that. And there's a couple other big companies that have one that are also going to be there. So I'm excited to talk to them, and just really, it's now I'm trying to really just get in front of those big organizations. Also though, like individuals. So it is still D2C because there are a lot of people on social media are the individuals that are following us and ordering through the links in our Instagram that taking you to the website because they're like, I need something like this. Like I just fainted a few days ago. Like I wish I had this then. But then, so we're also going to what's called the Abilities Expo. So it's specifically for people with disabilities in May in New Jersey, the first weekend in May. So that'll be, I think it's like 6 to 8,000 people that are going to come by, and
Wow.
it's all about people with disabilities and such. And so, yeah, really just trying to get in front of consumers and businesses in that space to kind of see how we can navigate through it.
It sounds like you're really in, I guess, growth mode, like trying to get this product in front of as many people as you can. So is this coming from, what are you looking for next from iPuppy? Like, are you trying to make a next version of the product? Are you trying to just sell more units? I guess once you've like found the service dog niche, what would you do, I guess, as next steps? Like, would you develop something new or would you kind of expand your service offerings, maybe not just a physical product, but other additional services?
Yeah, so all the above. So right now we just got inventory, I mean, 3.5 months ago. So like we're brand new. Like it took 2.5 years. When the inventory hit the Boston port, it got held up at customs for 6 more weeks. And then we got it, and then Boston had a strike for a few days. It was just, yeah, it was a mess. But we finally got it. It's only been 3.5 months. So we're really just getting out there. So really just brand awareness is where we're at right now. And after I think so this year the focus is on brand awareness and sales. I have all this inventory, got to move the inventory, and then from there what I want to do is there's a couple other products that I want to create a wearable product. I think that would be pretty cool for the dog or the individual, something wearable, because right now it's really just if you're home alone with your dog,
Right.
right? So I want, if you're out and about, I want something that could be wearable and mobile. But I feel like we're probably a couple years away from that, unless I blow through inventory and we have sales and the finances to start a second product. But so I want to do that. And there's another component that I want where you can remote open a door. So like this is going back to like the potty training piece, but like it's in our patent where you can remote open a door if you have it for your dog needs to go outside, you can just let them out. So like we got that. But service offerings too, yeah, like we want to expand it. What that looks like yet, I'm not sure, but right now it's just focusing on getting iPuppy out there and creating the awareness for it. And then I have ideas, but we need to move some of the inventory and get some of the funds back into the bank account to kind of continue on that.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about kind of, we're going back in timeline here, but during the actual development, and I have a dog, so this is kind of personal to
Okay.
me as well. How did you test this device? Did you have dogs that you were actively training to try to use the device? What was like it was just so different than like, any human wearable. You kind of just go and like ask your friends and family, but dogs can't really speak. They can't give you verbal feedback
Yeah.
unless they're barking at the mailman. But yeah,
Yeah.
what approach did you take?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It goes back to the finance thing. I was making posts about iPuppy, kind of just letting people know like I'm kind of starting this new thing, or an additional thing, I should say, in the pet space. And ironically enough, one of my finance clients is a pet photographer. And she's like, "Hey, if you ever need to set up a photo shoot, let me know." I was like, "I'm definitely planning on reaching out to you. We're just getting our first couple prototypes in. I'll reach out to you when the time's right." And I did. Her husband is a former military canine handler for 30 years,
Wow.
right? Like canine handler, like sniper, sitting outside, like outside in the woods for a couple days with his dog. Like they're a married couple. Like they could not have been more perfect. They also live in Massachusetts. I had known her for like 5 or 6 years prior. So we set up a photo shoot with them. They reached out to all of their contacts, and it was like one of the two of the best days I've ever had. I mean, we just had dog after dog coming in, testing out the product, the photo shoot. I spent like 2 straight days in and out of my house with like a dozen dogs, just testing out the iPuppy, little dogs to big dogs, to really test out the strength of it, the wear and tear on it. Can little dogs press it? We've had dogs as little as 4 pounds press the iPuppy. It only takes a half a pound of pressure. So that was kind of a big relief. We provide two like double-sided pieces of adhesive so it doesn't move on your hardwood or tile floor. I had it was like a 135-pound Newfie that couldn't move it. But had them over, and the trainer, he has a lot of insight, and some of the dogs were well trained and some of them were not trained at all. So all the well-trained ones, and with the trainer that I had with me, we were just talking about back and forth on how to train the dogs to do this, getting insight from them. Those 2 days particularly were really, really helpful to try to work with that, because dogs, you're right, like they can only go for like 10 to 15 minutes at a time before they just don't want to do it anymore. So you really got to take your time and be patient. They can't talk to you. All they want is the treat in your hand. Like there's a lot of difficult components to it versus just coming up with like a protein powder and having your friend try it and tell you if they like the taste. Like it's a lot of barriers that I didn't really think through when I went through this process. But yeah, it was helpful I got lucky again that I knew a couple people in that space, and they had a very big reach. And they lined up a ton of dogs. So that was the prototypes. And then when we got the final product, we had a handful of them come back, and we did the same process again. And it's really not that difficult to train the dog to press the button. Like we had a Frenchie, adorable, but he's an idiot. Like we had a Frenchie French Bulldog press it within like a half an hour. So, it just takes a little bit of patience, but it was good to see dogs of all different calibers be able to press it.
Yeah. I have a couple points. First of all, that sounds amazing to have all those dogs over. Like those 2 days, probably the best days of the company, huh?
It was so much fun. I took a Friday off of work. We had a Friday, Saturday, and it was just 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. Just dogs all day long coming in and out of my house.
That's
It
insane.
was awesome. Yeah.
And then second point, not to get like overly philosophical, but you mentioned that you're lucky to like have these people in your circle. But I would kind of say that you're in fact creating that luck for yourself, because you said that you made this announcement that, hey, I'm doing the side project. If you're interested, check it out. And I think a lot of people, they don't put themselves out there in the first place, where then these opportunities don't get presented to them. I mean, even the podcast that you were started, part of it was meeting that development company and having them develop this product for you. So I think there's something to be said about creating that luck by putting yourself out there.
I agree. I totally agree. Like I created the podcast to meet business owners in Massachusetts because of finance. I just wanted to meet more business owners. There's always more opportunity with businesses than individuals, blah, blah, blah. There was direct relationships and indirect relationships that came from it, like a brewery in Massachusetts. I haven't paid for a beer in 3 years. Like every time I go there, the guy's like, don't worry about it. Like, it's like, cool, this is great. But then, yeah, like I had a couple on here that were in my town, a fitness couple called Stack Tracks. I'll give them a shout out, Anthony and Lindsay. They were on here for their initial business. And then they created a product. So they asked to be on again. I was like, sure. So they came on, and they were the ones that introduced me to the company that helped them bring the product to retail. So like, yeah, you're right. Getting yourself out there. I do believe you create your own luck. And it's just about getting out there. If you don't talk about it, nobody knows, right? So it's just, you got to create your own luck. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's a really good like mindset to have about like, if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to create it. What are some of like more specific things? And I'm especially interested in like the marketing side of this, because you said you're a one-man show. So how are you like getting this in front of people's eyes? Are you posting, for example? I know the service dog subreddit is like huge. So kind of what are your different approaches with social media, word of mouth, etc.?
Yeah, so service dog subreddit, like I didn't even thought about that. So I'm gonna dance around that area soon. Yeah, so it's interesting. So going back to that pet expo, right? Just now I'm thinking back, like this all goes back even further, and it's just funny how like block after block it just kind of builds. So long story short, Suffolk University has an internship program. I had a gentleman do an internship with me. He was an entrepreneur major, and part of what he did one day was just create a template and and spammed a bunch of people on LinkedIn with the same message, all in the pet space, just trying to like, hey, I got this product, blah, blah, blah. Led me to a woman named Nancy. And then Nancy made a post about me. And then Eric is the gentleman that runs Super Pet Expo in New Jersey. He found me, shot me a message on Facebook. Obviously, he's trying to sell boots, right? So like he had a financial incentive to get me there. But through him was the expo that led to the service dog woman that reached out. And then now I talked about like celebrity dog trainers and such. And he's like, you should really speak to this woman named Chrissy Joy. She's amazing. She's a celebrity dog trainer. She's amazing. Connected with her. She's connected me with a few people. And like the list just goes on and on and on where like now like this woman, Colleen's got a company called Pets on Q. And you essentially, there's animal talent that in exchange for say a product, they'll create a bunch of video content for you. Now I'm specifically trying to get people in the service dog space. Like, do I like giving out free product? No, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than paying them to create like 4 social media videos and a bunch of
Right.
B-roll, right? So I
Yeah.
got to get over the hurdle of like I don't want to give away free product. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's a lot less. So getting in front of those people, they've created a bunch of content for that. And I have another woman in the specifically focused on pet space Instagram accounts, and she's helped me grow the account. She provides a lot of like ideas of content generating and such. So it's a combination of all that. So you should see the videos I make down here in my basement at 4 o'clock in the morning for iPuppy. Like I look like an idiot to the. If you had like a camera on me, I'd look like an idiot, like just down here. But it's yeah, it's just kind of it all started with the LinkedIn intern, and that's kind of how I've gotten in front of all these people to create the content. Because like I don't have a dog, I can't create the content without a dog. So
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of how we've gotten on those posts.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Last point I want to kind of take on here, and this is because you have your finance background. I want to like use the expertise that I have in front of me. So,
sure.
not every hardware founder is going to have that background, right? And so,
Right.
if someone with a similar background, like non-technical, however, they're not kind of versed in finance, maybe they have a different skill set. What would be like the key things that they need to learn and understand on the financial side, even if they outsource the finance to someone else? What would be kind of those key things in your opinion?
I mean, you have to know your this just goes back to personal finance. Like you have to know your numbers. You need to know what your fixed expenses are. You need to know what your surplus is each month to understand what risk you can take on, whether it's just throwing money in the stock market, which historically is just going to continue to grow over time, or outside risk. And this is a very variable risk that taking starting your own business because there's a lot like patents, like those attorney bills never stop. But
Mm.
so you really have to understand what your cash flow is to start. And then there are creative ways to fund it, if you will, right? Like the cheapest way is always going to be cash because there's no interest associated with it. You're not giving up any equity, you're not giving up any royalties. The cheapest option is always cash. But if you're creating a tech product with an app, I mean, it's not cheap by any means. And so, if you have like a brokerage account, like it's called a non-qualified brokerage account, so after tax money that you opened on your own, you could use that as it's called an asset-backed loan. You can use that as collateral. Money stays invested, and you can. It's kind of like if you have a home, like you have a home equity line of credit, kind of like the
Mm.
same concept. And you can use that as collateral. Money stays invested, so you don't have to take any money out, and then you can borrow essentially against yourself and use that to fund some of the projects. So depending on the size of your account and the size of the funds that you need, we took that approach for some of it, and that proved beneficial. It's they're kind of variable rates. You're borrowing against yourself, so you're paying interest, but rates were nice at 3.5 a couple of years ago. They're not as friendly anymore at 7. But now that we got the product, we're just we're paying back the principal, no
Yeah.
problems. But it's a creative way to just some people are like shit. Like all I have to do is like I got to sell out of my investment accounts to do this, and you don't got to do that.
Mm.
There's other ways to do it, and it's just a matter of the knowledge and the know-how to be able to do it. But it all comes down with your personal cash flow. You really have to understand what your personal situation is because you don't want to be halfway down there and be like, I got no more money, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
scary. You know,
Definitely. Is there any specific thing, for example, with bill of materials inventory, where your financial background, you had to like, learn certain terminology or certain ways that the hardware world works, kind of like to balance the sheets?
not specifically. I mean, I have. You should see my laptop over here. I have 6 spreadsheets up every single day tracking everything, every cost associated, like outside of finance and iPuppy. Like I have another business that I own. Like I have all these spreadsheets of all my costs, and it's like it's time consuming. It's just all about it's all about just tracking the cost. So nothing like specific to your question that directly relates to it, but you really just got to you really can't miss a penny. You have to be on top of everything and just really track it. So I just laugh when I look at a spreadsheet. There's just numbers everywhere. It only makes sense to me. But yeah, you just really have to understand your numbers. I think it comes down to at the end of the day.
Well, if anyone's listening to this that's a software engineer, whenever I hear 6 spreadsheets, that sounds like a tool that needs to be built to like solve a problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's crazy. I got like, yeah, I do. I literally have 6 spreadsheets up right now with like tracking of every, and they all have multiple tabs. Like it's a nightmare to probably the average person, but it takes a while to build. But I think you have to be really, really organized. Otherwise, you just throwing stuff up at a wall, you know?
Yeah.
So,
When I do spreadsheets, I can't use any of those templates just because there's so many like equation stuff going on in the background. Like I have to make everything from scratch myself so I understand what's going on. So
same, and it's a headache. It's like it's a weight. It's a weight to be lifted that you have to do it and do it, because even I just realized I screwed something up like a few weeks ago, and I had to like redo a bunch of it just to kind of like, none of these numbers are making sense. Like what did I had like one small calculation off, but there's nothing that's gonna, so many things are customizable. Is like the templates might be helpful for generic stuff, but you're mostly gonna have to build your own spreadsheets throughout. So I've kind of become pretty good with the spreadsheets, but I'm still not
nice.
like a whiz. Yeah.
Well, if you need spreadsheet help, if you need creative ways to raise money for your company, or if you have a service dog, Mark's your guy.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much for taking the time here.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can check out Mark at iPuppy, and I'll put links and stuff in the description here.
All right, sounds good.